Today is Tuesday, December the 8th. I had to look at the calendar. I always get my days and dates and everything mixed up. Also, I'm short for time today. Oh, yeah. And for those of you who may not know, even though I'm sure, well, it depends. If you are watching this, then you already know who I am. If you are listening to this, you may not know. I am your host, Casey Phoenix, and this is my daily thought. Okay. Where to start? Like I said, I don't have a lot of time. I went out to run an errand. And let me tell you, Best Buy, God bless them. I received an email, and the email has said that my pre-order for the game Cyberpunk 2077 had been delayed or something had happened. And I was like, oh, well, that's weird, but I'm not that pressed for it anyway because quiet as it's kept, I haven't played my Xbox in like 3 days because I usually don't have the time because I'm working. If I'm not working my regular job, I'm doing this and other things. So usually I any extracurricular activities, they might be at nighttime where I'll try to fit it in like right after I eat if I have a little bit of time right before I go to bed, or it may be on the weekend where things slow up somewhat, but usually I'm doing something that's work related, whether it's for myself or for my regular job. And I haven't played it. I haven't even played Yakuza Like a Dragon yet. Haven't even put it in the system. I played Avengers. I played Samurai Showdown, which is an old game. I've played Mortal Kombat 11, which I think I told you guys about. Still like 10 better. And I feel like I have another game. Oh, Soul Calibur 6, 7, something. I haven't even played that one yet. So when I received the email from Best Buy, I was just kind of like, whatever. And then right after that, they sent an email saying, hey, we made a mistake. Don't worry, you're going to receive your package on time, or not package, but you'll be able to pick up on time. You'll be able to pick up the game on time, which was for December the 10th. All right, I'm like, okay, fine. I didn't care anyway. Then right after that, I receive another email that says, part of your package is ready. I'm like, part of my package is ready for pickup. Okay, because it's the Cyberpunk and then it's a metal case that comes with it. So it wasn't the metal case. It was the game. So I'm like, it's saying the game was ready for pickup. And I'm like, oh, wow, 2 days early. Imagine that. So I had to go out and run an errand anyway. I'm like, oh, I get to kill two birds with one stone. So I go by Best Buy first, and the line was really short. One guy was already doing his thing with the cashier, and then it was me standing behind him. And she comes up, and I'm like, oh, I can't find it on here. But I did receive an email saying that it's ready. I was like, my Cyberpunk. And she's like, oh, no. She said, no, we can't. They won't let us release it until the 10th. So what it seems like happened is that they have it in stock now, meaning they received the shipment. It's just, I guess, due to deals behind the scenes, which I've heard of that before when it comes to contracts and things like that, where if there is a negotiated date, it can't come out before that date. And that's why with movies, sometimes they'll do a midnight showing, because I'm sure you've heard of that, where a movie is set to come out on a particular day when people used to go to the movies. And they couldn't do it the day before because that would violate the contract. But at midnight, it would be that day. So that's why some movie theaters would do midnight showings of this new movie that comes out if it's a really hot movie. And more than likely, and I'm just speculating here, I haven't seen what contracts Best Buy has going on with the software studio or animation studio and all that stuff with Cyberpunk. I don't know. I'm just speculating here. More than likely, there's something in the contract that says, hey, you cannot release this physical game to people before this date, is what I think is probably in place. Because she's like, yeah, people have been coming in. And I was like, oh, well, whatever. And I just went and ran my errand, is what I did. So I have to take a sip of my tea. So, yeah, that's what's going on with that. Now, also, I have an announcement too. I need to tell you guys thank you. And by the way, KIRWKC.com, main podcasting platform, KIRWKC on Instagram, on Twitter. If you're on Facebook.com/KIRWKC, if you're watching this on YouTube or Daily Motion, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, followed by notification bell. All right, got that out the way. So, I told you guys that things are being worked on behind the scenes administratively to get certain things in place. And I don't make announcements until the ink dries. Just like I had told you, I was working with iHeartRadio to have them as a distributor for this podcast. And it was submitted to iHeartRadio like a month or something like that ago. And then, of course, iHeartRadio agreed to distribute my podcast, which is amazing. It's amazing to be on their platform. Well, I randomly received another email today from another distributor, and I'm super duper happy. And thank you to all of you who have been listening to the podcast, because if you guys weren't listening, odds are I probably wouldn't be getting approved for this stuff. So thank you for listening to the podcast. So I received an email from Pandora today. And now, Keeping It Real with KC is officially on Pandora. So, if you want to listen on the main podcasting platform, which is Anchor, which you can go there, KIRWKC.com, that's fine. Or Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, or Google Podcasts, Play, whatever. All the other stuff that we're on, including iHeartRadio. But now, if you are a Pandora person, Keeping It Real with KC, the podcast, is officially on Pandora now as well. So I'm making that announcement. I'm super duper happy to have that news for you guys. I will have that link as well with some of the other links that my podcast is carried on in the description section. So if you're a Pandora person, because everybody, they have their things. Like some people are Apple people. Like for me, I'm not an Apple person. I ain't about that life. And if you've been listening to my podcast, you already know how I feel about Apple. I respect them. I respect their marketing game. I respect their products. It's just not for me. I'm not an Apple person. Just me. Not saying that won't change, because as I always say, as our lives change, so do our needs. But for right now, I'm not an Apple person. All right. So, but for some people, they like listening to Apple Podcasts. Some people like listening to Spotify. Some people like listening to Anchor or Google or Pandora or iHeart or whatever. And what I'm doing is I'm making sure that as many options as possible are available for people who want to listen to the show. And especially if they have a preferred, podcast outlet that they would like to listen to. So that's why I'm doing all this administrative stuff behind the scenes to get the podcast on as many platforms as possible. And as I said before, I wouldn't be able to do it without you. And an alarm is about to go off on my other phone in a second. And that's why I'm looking down. I'm waiting for it to go off. That way I can turn it off and do that. So come on, phone. Wait for that to happen, and then I can go into my daily thought, which I don't think it'll be that long, but it should be short. The sooner this thing goes off, the better. Waiting. There we go. Here we go. Come on. All right. Now let me take a sip of my tea and get into this thought. I had this thought either yesterday or the day before yesterday. And I was thinking about relationships, and not necessarily romantic relationships. I'm just talking about relationships in general. And one thing I asked myself, because I don't know why I was reflecting on things. I reflect on stuff sometimes. And I was like, wow, some people I kind of did have a good relationship with, but I sabotaged it. I did. Over things that may not be. When I was reflecting, I was looking more at romantic relationships. Let me be clear. Because when it comes to friendships, I I've given a lot more leeway in friendships than I do in romantic relationships. You know what? My face has been so oily lately, and these bumps are killing me. oh, oh my goodness. Just like one grew, if you can see it right here, it just grew. I'm like, man. And I know people who are listening to this podcast is like, okay, you really just went left. I know I did. It's because the bump, I could feel it on my head. And I was just like, ugh. But I digress. When I was reflecting, it was more on romantic relationships. But as I decided to take a deeper dive into the thought, I was like, you know what? People self sabotage all types of relationships, whether it's romantic, whether it's work relationships, whether it's friendships, whether it's relationships with family members or whatever. And it's why do we self sabotage good relationships? I don't know, because I was thinking about there's this guy, and I'm pretty sure I told you about him, that I dated in Miami. And some things, it just, I think back, and this is almost 20 years ago, because this was like what, 2002-ish. So yeah, almost 20 years ago. It's amazing how time goes by. And he was an amazing guy. I actually, when we first met, the reason that I decided to date him, which I don't think I told this story, the reason I decided to date him was because he cooked me breakfast the next morning. So, because he had cooked me, because nobody had ever cooked breakfast for me that I had dated before. And I had stayed the night that particular time. And I woke up the next morning and he had cooked breakfast for me. And I was like, I might need to keep this one. And I was telling my best friend at the time, I was telling him, I was like, he cooked me breakfast. you know, and he was an amazing guy. And back at that time, and still am to a certain degree, back at that time, I was a spoiled brat. I'm not as spoiled anymore, but I was really spoiled back then. And even with me being a spoiled brat, he still was very accommodating. And I was just thinking about that. And I'm like, maybe something could have worked if certain things that I felt were an issue, instead of running away, which was the easier thing to do. And now, okay, this is a therapy session. And I think this is what it is. All right, I'm on to something here. The universe is talking to me. I'm on to something here. I think, okay, I got it. Here we go. This is my belief. I think that some people self-sabotage good relationships because it's easier to run away than work through whatever issues you might consider tough issues. I'm not talking about the thing like, oh, well, somebody forgets to take the trash out all the time, or, oh, well, this person is Jewish and I'm Muslim, and how can it possibly work, or something like that. I'm not talking about that. Those are easy things to work through. I'm just talking about tough issues. And instead of, even though you know the person that you deal with, whether it's on a romantic level, whether it's on a friendship level, whether it's on whatever level, you know they're a good person, you know the relationship is good, you know that it will be rare to come across that type of relationship again, because whether it's romantic relationships, good ones are rare, and they have to be, because if they weren't rare, you would never appreciate them. Same thing with great friendships. They're rare, and they just have to be, because if they weren't, you wouldn't appreciate them. So I got to take another sip of tea. And with those any type of relationship, I really feel, I think that's why some people, myself included, self-sabotage a good relationship, and why some people still do it, because they don't want to work through whatever it is that, I don't know if it's emotional baggage or whatever, for lack of a better term, because I don't know the word. So for lack of a better term, for people who can't drown out or shut off the voices in their head, like saying, well, this won't work because of this. I can't be friends with this person anymore, more than likely because of this. Or I can't deal with this coworker anymore, more than likely because of this. When, for the most part, the relationship was good. I think that's why. That people just can't drown out the negative voices. They can't drown out the negative energy. They can't take a chance on facing whatever it is. Where some people, when they get into romantic relationships, some people feel they're not worthy of being loved. And that's some deep emotional stuff that they have to work out, because they're like, why is this person so good to me? Why is this person treating me so good? Like, I've never been treated this good before, type thing. And I'm just using that as an example. But pick your poison on the voices in your head. I think that's why people sabotage good relationships, because they can't drown out the negative voices. And now, like I said, good relationships. If it's a bad relationship, listen to the voices, look for the signs, don't miss the signs. But if it's a good relationship, then why not run? I read something recently, and I feel like they were saying Mike Tyson said it, but I don't know if Mike Tyson said that. I have to see the receipts on that one. But according to this thing that I had seen, Mike Tyson has said, if I'm afraid of something, I run towards it. That's what it said on the picture. Like I said, I want to see the receipts. But let's just take the saying and run with it and remove Mike Tyson from the picture, even though we're both cancers. All right. So instead of preparing to sabotage a good relationship, a relationship that you can recognize like, hey, there's something good here. There's something good here. Instead of just backing away from the relationship altogether, whatever type of relationship it is, and going the other direction, why not why not give your thoughts a voice to the individual that you're dealing with and just see what they say? Because it's almost like you can't really lose, because the knee-jerk reaction with sabotaging a good relationship is to run away. So you would lose the relationship. If you bring voice to the thoughts in your head, to the individual, to see what their thoughts are and to see where they stand on things, they might offer some type of, I don't know, some type of, what's that word I'm looking for? Not comfort. There's another word for comfort. It's something to ease your fears or something to ease your doubt. They might be able to offer that if you take the thoughts in your head, the voices that are saying this and saying that in your head, and bring those up to the individual and see what happens. Because if you don't, you will have sabotaged a good relationship. And the reason I can say you will have sabotaged it, because you never made, if there was a grievance, regardless of whether it was made up in your head or something that didn't exist or whatever, but whether there was a grievance or just insecurity or whatever it was that affected your relationship, you will never know if it was something that could have been resolved, because you didn't give it a chance to be resolved. You decided, because you were scared, to just let it go and say, I'm just going to walk away. No, yeah, this is good, but these voices in my head, they just won't go away. And I feel the voices are right. I'm not even going to bring it to the person's attention. I'm going to just go away. Even though the person's good, even though the relationship I have with this person is good, I'm just going to not say anything, and that's it. I'm going to end it. And not give the issue a chance to be resolved if there was an issue to begin with. Because you may bring these thoughts out, and then the individual may be like, well, you shouldn't think that because A, B, C, and D. And then when you hear A, B, C, and D, you're like, wow, you are right. Or you might be like, yeah, this is exactly like I thought. Definitely going to go ahead and walk away on this one. But it's not really a way you can lose if you bring it up. But what you don't want to do, if you know, just like you hear the voice telling you, or voices, depending on what's going on in your head, the voice or voices telling you, oh, well, there's an issue with this, there's an issue with that. Oh, and because of these issues, this won't work and that won't work and yada, yada, yada. I'm sure there's another voice that says, hey, this is something good. Give it a chance. Voice your concern. See what happens. Don't sabotage this good thing because the negative voices are a little bit louder. See what the options are on the table first. Don't just bow out because the negative voices are louder at the moment. And that's the other thing. Sometimes the negative voices are loud for just a moment. They may not be louder 2 months down the line or 3 months down the line or 6 months down the line. It may just be for that moment. But you sabotaged something that could possibly be long term, whether it is a romantic relationship, a friendship, a work relationship with a coworker or whatever, over something that was temporary. So, yeah, I think that's all. That's all I got. I didn't think it was going to be that long, but now I'm almost at 30 minutes. How did I get here? How did I get here? And I have to fix something to eat because I'm hungry. So, yeah, it's like, why do we self-sabotage good relationships? And now I know the answer because, or at least from the past, some of my past situations, because it was just easier for me to walk away, or let me just call it for what it is because we keep it 100 on the show. It was easier for me to run away than say what the negative voices were saying in my head and attempt to work it out. So yeah, I think that's the case with quite a few people. Not all people, but quite a few. So yeah, and I'm sure there are other reasons that will be different for every individual person. So it is what it is. KIRWKC.com, main podcasting platform. Now on Pandora. Shout out to Pandora. Thank you for accepting Keeping It Real with KC on your platform. Shout out to iHeartRadio. Anyone who's listening on there. And if you're watching this on YouTube or Daily Motion, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, followed by notification bell, facebook.com/KIRWKC. And yeah, that's all I have. Thank you to everyone for your support. Your support is helping this podcast expand. And it's expanding way more than I expected it to. Like, way, way more. Like, I kind of expected things to go well, but things are going surprisingly well right now. And I appreciate all of you for listening to me tell my crazy stories, crazy but true stories, and get my daily thoughts and talk about the wacky news weekends. And also, that reminds me, before I go, I plan on doing some more news stories. I want to do some more news stories, but I want to do them during the week for my daily thought. But I don't want to talk about celebrities. I want to do like local news stories, not sort of on the borderline of wacky, but kind of something happens and then I can offer my opinion on it. But I don't want to talk about celebrities because I don't care what they're doing. So yeah. Anyways, that's all I have. I'm really going to go this time. Until next time, love you guys. Be blessed.